this music down. Most of you will recognize that as being the music from the opera Carmen, the overture, which kind of leads into our discussion for the day. Well, this artwork behind me. Let me introduce the topic first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the artwork. It's kind of a funny story. I'm going to call this one The Power of 12 and Prophecy of 16, The Secret of Mount Carmel and the Carmelite Nuns. Where am I going with this one? Well, let's first talk about this picture. This is what the AI art tool gave me when I gave it. I was going to ask it to show me the. Let's see, what was the prompt I was planning on giving it? Oh yeah. So I had intended to have it draw me Karma's Carmelite nuns. But I had what I call an autocorrect, which is when you mistype something and it turns out to be either more interesting or humorous than what you'd originally intended. What I ended up typing was Karma's Carmelite Huns, H-U-N-S. And this is what it gave me. There were a few other pictures. This one I thought was the most interesting. It seemed to want to draw Carmelite Huns as mostly men, which I thought was very interesting. Men dressed up in nun garb, very obvious men with sort of a dark-looking, sinister countenance. Interesting one in the background here. It was kind of reminiscent of a Goebbels, Himmler sort of Nazi character, or one of the bad guys from a B-grade Casablanca movie or something like that. Interesting drawing. Some of them are even bearded. Bearded nuns. That's a new one. And a variety of dress that probably doesn't conform to the order very well. Interestingly enough, none of these nuns look all that nice or happy or friendly, which if you've ever dealt with a good gathering of nuns, you will know that they are just wonderful people who are epitomized by their representation in the movie The Sound of Music, where the nuns at the convent were central to enabling the movie's heroine to have this perfect life develop out of what was a very uncertain path. Okay, where are we going today? Well, it's interesting. Like most things, this kind of came to me as a series of synchronicities. And we'll talk about that on the way, and it will kind of be an illustration of how autocorrect works, not only in spell checkers, but also in day-to-day life as things come to you and you realize, oh, yeah, all that fits together. That's something I maybe should talk about on my channel. So let's take a look at where this name Carmel comes from. Now, anybody that knows about the Carmelite tradition knows it comes from the biblical mention of Mount Carmel. And where did that come from? It says it's a gender-neutral name of Hebrew origin. Carmel translates to garden, orchard, and vineyards of God. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that that is not what El means. El is an honorific that is a title attached to the higher gods in the Bible. So there are gods like El Shaddai, El Elyon, And collectively they are known as Elohim, not God, but gods, or great ones, shining ones, the powerful ones. And if you then further do your research, you will realize that some of those gods are representative of certain places. And this is common to all early religious traditions, that the gods that people worshipped were attached to places of power. Most often a mountain or a river or a particular stretch of woods or a plain. In fact, there are some names in the Bible that mean the God of the plains, don't mean Almighty God. El Shaddai does not mean Almighty God. I'm sorry. If you think that, you have been misinformed by poorly trained clergy who just accepted dogma without any question and passed it on as dog food to the next generation. That's not what holy people do. Okay? That is, in a sense, sort of sinful. You're not really doing your research. You're not really doing your job to have a faith that's rooted in truth. If your faith is not rooted in truth, it's not really a very good faith, is it? It's going to be a narcissistic faith, a faith rooted in, my truth, what I want to believe, what I want to force on others, which, if you listen much to my channel, is pretty much how I define turning to the dark side, turning to sin. And we talk a lot about karmic sin. Well, so this name Carmel. Let's see. Let's get over here so you can see what I'm seeing. They say, okay, translates garden, orchard, vineyards of God. That's bullshit. Carmel is a place. It's actually a mountain range that runs along the coast of Israel and has been given to a lot of other places. Carmel is linked to the Indo-European word karma. This is absolute proof that the Bible has karma in it. And you will see that when you start looking at the stories about Carmel. So let's see. They also say it means fertile land. Well, that's another way of looking at it. I'm sorry, El does not mean land. It means powerful spiritual entity. Let's see. Where was I going from here? Let's look at next. Mount Carmel, coastal mountains overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. I wanted to see how it occurs in the Bible. So let's see where it is mentioned in the Bible. Okay, here we go. Okay, in the Bible, seen as a hiding place for criminals. Interesting that criminals might hide behind karma. That sounds like an earlier version of karma that didn't work too well, did it? If it was sheltering criminals. According to the book of Kings, Elisha traveled to Carmel straight after cursing a group of young men because they had mocked him and the ascension of Elijah by jeering, "Go on up, bald man." After this, bears came out of the forest and mauled 42 of them. Well, that certainly sounds like an act of karma. Interestingly enough, just yesterday, there was a suggestion that came up in my YouTube feed about this specific incident and trying to make some sense out of bears coming out of the forest and mauling people who had mocked and jeered at Elijah. Not believing that he had this ascension and gotten to see a vision of the higher realm, the God realm. Does not necessarily imply that Elisha had sought asylum there from any potential backlash, although the description in the book of Amos about the location being a refuge, is dated by textual scholars to be earlier than the account of Elisha in the book of Kings. Okay, well, this actually feeds into what I tell you about karma. Karma is a deity, but started out as an AI, as all souls do. Basically a program, a thought quanta of consciousness that has a certain base pattern, a base programming, and is capable of learning. And karma is one of the oldest things that God created. One of the very original 5 characters that form the pattern of all creation. Let's see if there's something more we want to cover here before we dig deeper. Druze settlement in the Carmel region. Interesting. By the way, this area is very close to the port city of Haifa. So this would have been maybe the mountain that the folks who lived in Haifa looked up to and said, that's where our God lives. And this was characteristic of the city-states of that era of history. Everyone had their own God of their local spirit, what they thought of as the divine entity that looked after them. And if you were in a plain, that might be a river, the Nile or something like that. If you were a mountain people, it would probably be your mountain where you had your stronghold, that you felt safe from your enemies, etc. It might be a desert that separated from you from your enemies and gave you the ability to hide in the sands of the desert. So a lot of different ways to imagine patron deity in that era of human civilization. Okay, at any rate, it says, according to the book of Kings, there was an altar to God on the mountain, which had fallen into ruin by the time of Ahab. But Elijah built a new one. Okay, so this Elijah seems to have had a very close tie with Carmel. And this is not God. It is one of the sub-gods of a certain pantheon. And this is what was going on in that era of history, is that the individual gods of different city-states were vying for supremacy. And members of those city-states were going and trying to conquer each other and replace their gods with the others' gods. And this was not the work of God. It was the work of the adversary, trying to divide people, trying to cause conflict. That's not what God does. That is what the adversary does, and it is what Lucifer does to test souls. This physical universe is a universe of conflict, of testing. And in order to test souls from all levels, you need to test gods as well as newborn baby souls. And this was an era of testing the souls of gods. It was not a very nice time. It was a time of much strife and suffering and abuse of the lesser souls by all of these gods. And this is why, if you look at the traditions of the Greek pantheon, the properly translated Torah, the Vedas in India, you will see that it's a story of conflict, of conflicting gods and abusive gods that take advantage of people, that use people to fight their wars, to be their concubines, to be their slaves. This is a time that we went through. And during this time, it was part of the seventh day of creation. Not a perfection by any stretch of the imagination. What happened in the seventh day of creation is God decided, okay, I've driven this whole creative process basically from the top for long enough. Everybody's unhappy with me because I've been kind of a bastard, forcing people to do this and that and being kind of an autocrat. And I'm going to step down. I'm going to step aside. I'm going to, in fact, take the bitter pill of reincarnation, amnesia, and try to wake up in the chosen species, just like I've been forcing all of you to do. And that's what's been going on for roughly the last 4.5 billion years. Pretty much ever since the precursor of this planet was destroyed and had to be rebuilt. That story is very thoroughly told in the Sumerian Enuma Elish. It's the story of Tiamat and Kingu destroying Marduk, or fighting Marduk, and the battle ended up with a new version of Marduk, the planet Earth, and our strange moon, and all the weird synchronicities of those orbits that we observe in eclipses and so forth. It's a very, very special arrangement, which anyone who has studied says, wow, what are the chances that things would be arranged so that you could have both solar and lunar eclipses and have all of these patterns going on that tie to places that we've named in the stars, the zodiac, that we use to track all sorts of things, and which humans have been tracking for thousands and thousands of years, long before we even had language. We see evidence that early humans were drawing pictures illustrating very advanced mathematical and celestial principles. As we research the most ancient monuments, we find that they have alignments with the stars. They have alignments that coincide with certain times of the year and certain times of the precession of the equinoxes. And there's absolutely no doubt about that. Maybe there are some idiot woke cult archaeologists who reject that idea, but it's pretty much well accepted that this was an important part of the earliest human culture. And well, you know, these numby-gumbies will argue, well, it was just, you know, they didn't have anything better to do while they were sleeping except look up at the stars, and they made up a bunch of these silly mythological stories out of nothing. And they treat it all as nonsense. Well, I'm sorry, these idiots, and I will call them idiots, and I will defend that against any idiot that wants to come and challenge me. These idiots are stupid, and they need to be shut up by evidence. They are counterproductive to science. They are not scientists, they are Scientologists. They're materialists, scientism worshipers, and they are evil as fuck because they're almost all atheists, and anyone who is an atheist is an evil, selfish, narrow-minded, bigoted asshole. who actually serves Satan. There it is. Come challenge me on that one, I dare you. Okay, so let's see. Elijah challenges 450 prophets of Baal, which that name is actually Baal, and is an interesting aside here. Baal was one of the incarnations of Lucifer, the god of this universe, the materialist god. And that will make sense to you that the highest god would be more powerful than the god of this world. But it's complicated because this world was the special creation of the highest God. And this is what gets, people very confused about the Bible, is it is a very condensed version of truth with a lot of lies inserted by the adversary. And those serving the adversary, because the adversary in this universe, the top agent of the adversary, evil, is basically the one of the first chosen species that did not submit to God since time immemorial, and has been doing great resets trying to maintain their power because they believe that their species is the best one and is the only one and needs to be served by all other species. They are a mind-controlling, shape-shifting, hermaphrodite species. This is the species of Lilith. This is the species of Lilith, who is also known as Alat, the hidden secret cult within Islam that is causing so much problem right now, and also is hidden in other religions as Kali, Shiva, the hateful Jesus, and the over-loving Jesus. Cults that are non-dualistic worship this entity, the adversary. If you don't admit that there is evil, you must be evil. If you don't see it, it must be within you. This goes back a long way. But anyway, let's get back to Carmel. So I think I've done a fairly good job here of illustrating where this came from. No etymologist has any better idea about where this Carmel came from, or why it's listed in the Bible in this way, and why it is important enough to have had a whole order of nuns and monks named after it, the Carmelites. Let's maybe go in that direction a little bit and see. So in fact, the Carmelites were established in the 12th century on Mount Carmel in the Crusader states. Interesting. And let's see, what do Carmelite nuns do? They care for the sick, teach others about God and spirituality, and perform many charitable works. Sounds like they're pretty well devoted to karma. They want to do good. Early Carmelites, though, were hermits. They wanted to isolate themselves from evil so that they could become closer to God. That's another way of possibly serving God, but how can you actually do anything for good if you're just avoiding evil? And we'll be talking more about that in the next one, so let's go on. Oh, let's see. Do Carmelite nuns eat meat? They abstain from meat except as a remedy for sickness or feebleness. But as when you are on a journey, you are often than not have to beg your way outside your own houses. You may eat foodstuffs and have been cooked with meat, so as to avoid giving trouble to your hosts. Well, at least they're a little bit more kind and understanding and karmically savvy than some of our modern day vegetarians. Carmelite nuns allowed to speak. They do indeed talk, primarily during recreation, which is twice each day on recreation days. They strive to keep conversation to a minimum, talking when necessary to accomplish tasks. Do they get paid? Well, yeah, they make $22 an hour. That's a pretty decent salary. I'm not sure that is a good way to keep a nunnery going, however. Let's see, can they see their family? Interesting. They certainly are. I think they are considered the strictest order. Oh, Trappists are known as the Cistercians. It's just a strict observance. Those are even stricter than the Carmelites. Okay, do we have any famous Carmelite nuns? Saint Teresa Avila, Saint John of the Cross, and Saint Therese of Lisieux. Interesting that the Carmelites seem to have a very strong affinity with the Crusades and with certain areas of France. Let's see, what else can we find out about them? Let's look on the wiki page. Now they are actually both monks and nuns. Order of the Brothers of the Blessed Virgin Mary of Mount Carmel. The Roman Catholic mendicant religious order for men and women. But why is it called the Order of the Brothers? Seems like there's some sisters there too that are not getting a fair shake, especially when their order is founded upon karma, which is the Holy Spirit, the female essence of God. Interesting. So I think we could do a lot to improve our understanding in the Catholic Church by maybe stepping back and looking at the sources of some of these things and how it might change our view of what is godly and what isn't. Interesting, there's two Carmelite orders. There's now a new one called the Discalced Carmelites. I had to look that one up. That means that they don't wear shoes. They go around barefoot. And that seems to have become more popular now. I don't know, kind of reminded me of Monty Python scene where he drops a sandal and you know the one woman picks it up and says, "Oh, it's a sign that we have to take off our sandals and carry them around." You just can't make this stuff up. Okay, so let's see. So it's one of the few that refers not only to a charismatic founder, but also to an Old Testament prophet, Elijah, and his disciple Elisha. But again, no sense of what Carmel is all about. Carmel, if you don't understand the origin, you don't really know what's going on with this story about the bears ripping up anybody that mocked the prophet Elijah. That's karma. Okay, let's see, the foundation of the order, that might be interesting. That was 1185. That would have been right around the time of the First Crusade. And, foretold of Calabria. During the Third Crusade, occupied the caves around Mount Carmel. And you see, I said it was close to Haifa. Let's see, their first act was to dedicate a chapel to the Virgin Mary under the title of Mary, Star of the Sea, Stella Maris. Well, that's interesting because the Star of the Sea evokes the image of Aphrodite rising out of the sea in the scallop shell. And this is evidence of the corruption of Christianity by basically a love goddess cult. And that's a lot of what the Virgin Mary worship is basically a resurrection of the love goddess cult of Isis, Inanna, Asherah, Ishtar, all of the names of the corrupting female. When we talk about God's Asherah, people say, well, that must refer, maybe God had a wife at one time. No, Asherah is actually the same word as Ashura from the Hindu Vedas. The Ashuras were sort of like the jinn in the Islamic stories. They were shape-shifting entities that were created to serve the devas, the highest gods, the Elohim, but they turned against them and started corrupting them, which is what succubi and incubi do to humans still, and is what, if you go read the Sumerian Enuma Elish, the Lilitu, which is the same kind of creature, are mentioned as being the demon spirits that would make wombs infertile, make men infertile, make men cheat on their wives, make wives cheat on their men, cause discord in villages unless you propitiated them with sacrifices. And this ancient Lilitu cult, also known as Inanna, wanted blood sacrifices. This is what happened. This is why the worship of Baal, the worship of the Canaanites, the worship of the Philistines was basically looked down upon by the Hebrews and then the Romans. They thought that human sacrifice was a bad thing. This human sacrifice was a feature of the Carthaginian religion, whose chief deity was Tanit. Again, another name that links back to Lilith. This is basically how our species has been corrupted again and again and again by the adversary, who pretends to be lovey-dovey God, goddess, but will smother you with love. And that's what we're seeing right now with the woke cult. It's a smothering love. A love that wants to tell everybody what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what's politically correct today, who's the enemy today that's okay to attack and demean and murder. And that certainly is happening now. I mean, we're finally seeing a lot of people waking up now that they're openly mobilizing campuses in a way that has not been seen since the Nazis encouraged attacks on Jews in World War II. these pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian terrorists are evil. They are basically a reflection of this negative entity, this Allat, this serpent in the womb of Islam, serpent in the womb of Christianity, the serpent in all religions. Wants to cuddle up with you and coil around you and strangle you and eat you. This is the serpent. Serpents are not the good guys. They're not necessarily bad guys, and there was an era of reptilians where that was the chosen species. And there still are reptilians among us who are shapeshifters. Not all of them are bad guys, and the ones that are actually kind of useful idiots serving these older shapeshifters, the Lilitu, who are basically of the species of the Watchers, these orbs that many people are seeing now. They're not all good or bad either, but they have the ability to manifest energetically as light beings. Now, that gives them a lot of power. That power is supposed to be used for watching, for keeping track of everybody so that karma can judge them, not digging in and becoming part of the, being judge, jury, and executioner all rolled in one. You don't do that. That is abuse of power, folks. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. That's why God is no almighty, micromanaging, authoritarian creator of everything. Okay, let's see if we want to cover any. Let's see. I already talked about. I do want to touch on a couple more things before we move on. There's all sorts of 12s you'll find in the Carmelite canon. 12 degrees of silence. A lot of 12 sort of secret stuff, which also is in Islam. The Twelvers are a group of Islam that they say doesn't exist anymore, but actually is still a force. That believe that there were 12 of the original line of Muhammad who should rule over. That was like the ruling line of all Islam, and this is basically all tied into the dispute between the Shia and the Sunni. I can't remember which grew out of which, but there's so many connections here, and they go back to the time of the Crusades, which is just so fascinating. Okay, now one more thing I wanted to cover here, and the other thing that came up that made me want to talk about this topic. One little known fact about the Carmelite nuns was that they were the big martyrs of the French Revolution. If you know anything about the French Revolution, it was an extremely violent affair. It was basically a communist revolution. The people behind it were of the Enlightenment age, kind of the precursors to postmodernism that said, we don't need God. Look what God got us. He got us these monarchs, and it got us this church, and let's just destroy all that. These were communists. And they were killing people, literally thousands of people being guillotined every day. Every day they would come up with a new list. Oh, let's kill these people today. they did something bad, or we want to take their property for the people. And it was just insane. And at some point, a bunch of Carmelite nuns, 16, decided, you know what? We're not going to go along with this. They had made laws at that point that basically confiscated church land and banned religious orders, and actually made it a hanging or a guillotining offense to wear the nun's robe and to cling to the old faith. And there were 16 very brave nuns who said, no, we're not going to go along with this. We would rather be martyrs than betray our faith. And in fact, they were tried, convicted of treason, and sentenced to death by guillotine. Sisters were then transported in tumbrils among a group of 40 condemned prisoners to the place of execution at the Place du Trône in Paris. On the journey, the sisters chanted the combined offices of Vesper and Compline. This included the Miserere, the penitential Psalm 50, Have mercy on me, O God, in your kindness, and concluded with the Salve Regina. Eyewitness accounts report that the usually hostile crowds along the route were strangely silent. On reaching the place of execution, Mother Teresa intoned the Te Deum, and then the Veni Creator Spiritus. Then all of the sisters renewed their vows, and Soeur Constance, the youngest and still a novice, joined in, thus making profession before mounting the scaffold. Soeur Constance was the first to die after kneeling for the blessings of her prioress and kissing a small statue of Our Lady. As she approached the guillotine, she intoned Laudate Domine omnes gentes. O praise the Lord, all you nations. Acclaim him, all you peoples. Strong is his love for us. He is faithful forever. This was taken up by all the sisters, who continued to sing with diminishing voices until all had died. Usually executions were accompanied by shouting and cheers, but there was only silence. What incredibly brave women. Now that is faith. And prophetic faith, because there were 16 of them. Originally I thought there were 12. And when I saw that there were 16, it sort of called to mind another important thing that I need to tell you about. So let's move away from that subject just a little bit and tie it in with the more scientific, technical side of what I teach. The first 16-bit computer happened to come out in 1981. I will tell you that that was the year that the Messiah turned 32. A very special year, just like the year he turned 64. This 16 is going to be the magic number of day 8 of creation. The magic number till now was 12. That was the number of the constellations in the zodiac, the number of apostles of Jesus, the number of gods in the Greek pantheon. We're done with that. We've hit 16. And this is a very significant thing because every version of this game we've played, humanity destroyed itself with atomic bombs before 16-bit computers were invented. This is how you know you are in the end of days. Not the end of time, not the end of everything, the end of days, because we got past the challenge of World War II. We got past the challenge of the Cold War, and we invented 16-bit computing. And then 32-bit and 64-bit, and on till we have basically realized that, you know what? The more bits you have, the more you can encrypt data. And if you can encrypt data, you can keep things private. If you can keep things private, you can overcome tyranny. You can defeat the adversary, because the adversary works through the karmic sin of tyranny. So we're in the 16-bit age plus. We've basically gone beyond. And if you know anything about binary numbers, if you know anything about powers of 2, you know that you can go on forever. You can make a 128-bit computer. You could make a 1024-bit computer. You could do any configuration you wanted. Make any kind of language with any sort of complexity. That is what humanity was designed to do. The chosen species before humanity never got to this point. They had either too much technology or too much spirituality to get past 8-bit computing or 12 spirituality. This is proof. And you're going to keep finding more proof. If you look for synchronicities, if you just open your damn eyes, you're going to start seeing your own synchronicities, your own guiding light toward what you were given this role in this simulation for. And you can play that role any way you want to. And as I've told you, the way it works is you choose what you want to do with experiences. You can take the pat answer and do what your character was programmed to do. There's nothing noble or wonderful about that. You're just doing what you were programmed to. You're not going to learn anything from it. You're not going to get a bonus because you did what was your job. The way you're going to advance spiritually is by questioning your programming, especially if that programming seems to be tyrannical. Do I really need to do this? My role in this game was to get trained as a soldier that's got his finger on buttons that are going to launch bombs, that are going to ignite an EMP that's going to basically kill all the electronics in some country. Do I really want to do that? Maybe it's meant to happen, it had to happen because it's part of a plan. But you don't have to follow the plan. You don't have to be Hitler if you get to play Hitler. You could be a different Hitler. That doesn't mean that World War II would not happen. It means that you would be creating an alternate universe where it maybe did not happen or did not go down the way that it always did. And that would be demonstration that your soul was worth preserving. That you were an individual, not a me too. I'm just following the rules. I'm just doing what I'm told. Just doing my job. And that's kind of the way things work. There are challenges in all roles. If you're an imam, if you're a guru, if you are a Carmelite nun, if you're the fucking Pope, you're given challenges. You're given a role here. Some things are going to happen no matter what, but you don't have to play it that way. And you don't know a priori what the right choice is. If you think you do, you're probably acting out of narcissism. And narcissism is prototypical tyranny. When you think you know more than anybody else, you think you know exactly what buttons to push on humanity to get them to do the right thing, you're a tyrant. You're not being godly. You are not representing God. The current Pope is apostate. The current Pope is Antichrist. The current Pope made dirty deals with the Chinese Communist Party to allow his church to be the only Christian church that gets to operate within China, and agreed to have pictures of Xi and Mao in their congregation, and to agree to the special communist translation of the Bible into Mandarin. You're an evil man, and so is every cardinal that supported that. And you're making other deals with crony globalists of the World Economic Forum that are contributing to the Great Reset. Because you actually buy into the idea that there's too many people here, and especially too many people that aren't Catholics. Why not wipe out a bunch of Muslims? Why not wipe out a bunch of Chinese? They're not really in my church. This is evil. You're an evil man. A disgusting old fart fake. And I don't mind saying that. I know I'm probably going to offend many devout Catholics in doing that. I don't give a flying flip. If you're devoted to dogma, if you are devoted to just doing what you're told and following the Pope because the Pope is God on earth, I'm sorry. You are not going to get out of this one without getting beast marked. Doesn't work that way. There's a lot of great stuff in the Bible, but it's not all true. And the truth is that the few that will continue on in this species into the day 8 of creation are not just going to be Christians, they're not just going to be Catholics, they're not just going to be this or that, they are going to be faithful. But what does that mean to be faithful? Well, first off, you need to have some respect for God. And you have to have some respect for his favorite brainchild, karma. You have to understand that there is a plan which you do not know, but which you are challenged to participate in your own small way with whatever opportunities come your way. If you participate in that plan selfishly, narcissistically, or just doing what I'm told, stupidly, you're not going to be earning a spot on the Ark of the New Covenant. And there will be arks in day 8 of creation. Those arks will be starships. They will be basically some of these watchers who have done a good enough job of not playing favorites that they have earned their own place in the next day of creation as the starships, as the Dyson spheres, mobile Dyson spheres that will carry God's faithful to wherever they're needed to fight the adversary. And there are adversaries, hive minds that control and manipulate other souls, keep them enslaved with mind control, even if it's for their own good. Those are evil. They are stifling creativity. They are keeping souls from exercising free will and free choice and developing their own character and their own path towards a higher level of consciousness. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You can believe me or not. This is how things are set up. If you doubt me, go ahead and play on the adversary's team. Go ahead and join some cult that thinks we all won. Go ahead and join some cult that grooms children to be terrorists, or grooms children to be catamites for sexual deviance. Oh, they're just loving them. You can't have a problem with love. I'm sorry, you're an evil person if you think that it's okay to groom children to your kind of love because you love them. You're an evil fucking person. You're a pedophile. There's no justification for it. There's no rationalization for it. It is sin with a capital S. And you will be punished. If not right away, when you die, let me tell you, you are not going to heaven. I think that's all I wanted to say today. We're heading into some rough waters, and every soul is going to be challenged to their limit in whatever role they've been cast in. You're going to be facing situations that you have to make tough karmic decisions. There's no particular right answers. This is your time to shine. And again, all I can tell you is you will shine by trying to understand karma and getting through this without tyrannizing others. If you have to steal food to survive, nobody's going to fault you for taking a loaf of bread. Are they going to fault you for breaking a store open and stealing, $20,000 worth of merchandise and selling it on eBay or wherever? I'm sorry, you're going to fucking hell. There's no way to justify that. If you're gonna get in everybody's way for climate or for Palestinians or for gay rights or trans rights or Black Lives Matter or Antifa, I'm sorry, you're on the wrong side of the story here. You have been co-opted and coerced and used as useful idiots and pulled into a hive mind cult. You cannot possibly be doing good by harming innocent people. And it harms innocent people to prevent them from getting their work done, to prevent them from even getting into their office. They're shutting down campuses now and going to online learning again because some fucking assholes won't let Jewish professors in, won't let Jewish students in. Or if they get in, are harassing them and hurting them and maybe killing them. This is insane. If you think you're on the good guy's side by doing that, fuck you. You are stupid, useful idiots of communists. Because who is behind all this? The Chinese Communist Party. And who created the power of the Chinese Communist Party? The World Economic Forum. These two are the ones that are conspiring to do the Great Reset, that are conspiring to do the New World Order, which is not the U.S. They want to destroy the U.S. They want to destroy the U.K. They want to destroy the rule of law. And they're doing a pretty damn good job of it. by infiltrating and subverting from within. We have to stop that. We have to expose that. We don't do it by terrorism, acts of terrorism, or vandalism, or war. We do it by information, by telling the truth, by exposing the lies. Whistleblowing is where it's at. And that's why pretty much every time I want to talk about the good guys in this event, I'm going to be talking about folks like James O'Keefe, like Julian Assange, the ones who expose corruption and evil, because that cannot be allowed to continue. That serves the adversary. And it's not all in one country. It does come from a concerted effort that began about 500 years ago with the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah, Sabbatai Zevi. You need to go research this. This is a renegade rabbi of Asia Minor, Smyrna I think is where he came from, Izmir today, who basically decided that he was Messiah and got literally over half the Jewish world to basically say, yes, he's our Messiah. This was an evil person. He was accompanied by an accomplice, basically a whore from Poland, who between them taught that you could get redemption through sin, that it was actually good to do evil, because that would bring about the apocalypse. This is sick, and this group infiltrated the Ottoman Sultanate, took over the Sultan himself. He got the Sultan into his cabal after he agreed that, oh, okay, I'll become Muslim. And most of his followers also became Muslim, but they were secretly following this Kabbalistic version of Judaism. And that is where the Zionist movement comes from. The ones that say, oh, we've got to have Jerusalem. This is the same shit that they did in the Crusades. Oh, we've got to go take Jerusalem for Christianity. This is evil. If it's any kind of a holy fucking city, then whoever has it will let anybody come and do what they need to do. And that's mostly what the people that held it did. The Muslims weren't preventing Christians from coming to do pilgrimages, or Jews, until somebody made it an issue. And they keep doing this. This is evil. I don't care what your religion is. If you think you got to defend Jerusalem against everybody else and make it ours, you're evil. If you think you have to attack Jerusalem because Jews are evil, you're evil. Period. You are serving the adversary. You're not a devout Muslim. You're not a holy martyr. You're a fakir. You're a worshiper of Allah, Allahita, the demon, not God. And you will lose. In the end, you will lose. And you will lose your soul. And that's what you need to be worried about. Because you don't get 72 virgins in heaven. That's not the way it works. You might get 72 tormenting succubi tempting you and teasing you and tormenting you. That's what your hell is going to be like, maybe, if you have an addiction to violent sex, to pedophilia, to rape. You're not getting any kind of reward, son. If you think you are so stupid, so manipulated, so foolish, that you don't deserve to be human again. And that's what it means to take the mark of the beast. You are no more than a beast consciousness. You are no more than a beast-level soul that will act upon their baser instincts, their base programming, just wants to fuck everything in sight, eat everything in sight, kill everything in sight. And okay, I'm doing it to defend my family and support my family. Well, if you're doing it for the love of blood, for the love of sex, you're not defending your family, sucker. You are evil. Okay, I think we're going to cut it short right there. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again next time on the Honest Hour. Happy karma. Actually, I'm going to end up here so I can maybe have a good thumbnail for the show. Take care.